I knew something was wrong the moment I heard the crunch of footsteps on the frozen gravel behind my shed. It was early morning, the kind of cold that bites through gloves and makes your breath hang like smoke. I turned the corner and froze when I saw her, Marla, the infamous HOA Karen of our neighborhood, standing over my winter fire, would stack like it belonged to her. Her red coat popped against the snow, and she had that clipboard tucked under her arm as if it gave her magical authority. She wasn't just looking, she was inspecting, and I felt my stomach tighten because anytime she inspected something, trouble followed like a shadow. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from because what happened next still makes my blood boil. She reached out and dragged her fingernail across the top log like she was checking for dust in a mansion. The way she curled her lip told me she was already building a case in her head. She spun around when she realized I was there, giving me that practiced smile that never reached her eyes. I stepped closer, boots sinking into the icy snow, and tried keeping my voice steady. But the cold wasn't the only thing making me tremble. She didn't even wait for me to speak. "This woodpile," she said sharply, "is on HOA property." She motioned to the ground like she owned the earth beneath us. My jaw clenched. I had measured this spot myself last summer. It was my property line down to the inch. I told her calmly that she was mistaken, but calm never worked on her. She tilted her head, acting like she was giving me a chance to confess. "We can do this the easy way," she said, "or you can deal with consequences." The wind picked up, shaking the bare branches overhead, and for a second I wondered how someone could create such heat in weather this cold. My firewood was stacked neatly under a tarp I'd secured tightly before the storm. Her eyes darted over it like it offended her personally. She scribbled something on her clipboard. I hated that clipboard. Everyone in the neighborhood did. It was her sword, her shield, her excuse. Before I could say anything else, she walked to the edge of the woodpile, ripped the tarp off, and tossed it aside like it was trash. My breath caught. Pieces of frozen snow crashed off the logs and scattered. That tarp had taken me 2 hours to strap down in the cold. I stepped forward, but she lifted her hand like she was stopping a child. "Don't," she snapped. Something in me started to burn hotter than any firewood I'd ever used. Her boots crunched as she walked around the stack again, tapping logs with the tip of her pen like she was identifying stolen goods. She finally turned and declared, "This will be removed today. HOA regulations." Her words echoed in the icy air as if the wind itself disapproved. I stared at her, and the disbelief in my chest felt like a physical weight. "Removed," I repeated slowly. She nodded like she was granting me a favor by confirming it. I looked at my wood pile, 2 months of splitting, stacking, drying, and saw not just firewood but hours of work she was treating like debris. She stepped closer, invading my space, breath visible as small bursts of condescension. "You should be thanking me," she said. "I'm preventing a violation notice." I could feel my pulse in my ears. She always did this, created a problem, then pretended she was saving us from it. I tried explaining again that the land was mine, that I had the survey documents, the stakes, everything. But she waved her hand as if brushing away a snowflake. "I've already called the removal team," she said smugly. "They'll be here soon." The cold suddenly felt sharper. The idea of random workers rolling up and throwing my wood into a truck made my hands curl into fists inside my gloves. I felt the anger rising, but also something else, an uneasy sense that she was doing this for a reason that had nothing to do with HOA rules. Because Karen never made a move without a personal motive hidden under all that fake authority. And when she smirked at me before turning her back, I knew this wasn't about property lines at all. It was about control. Control she thought she had over everyone here. Control she wanted over me too. But she didn't know that this time she had messed with the wrong neighbor. The so-called removal team arrived 20 minutes later in a beat-up pickup truck that looked nothing like an official HOA vehicle. 2 guys jumped out wearing mismatched jackets, and one of them had a cigarette dangling from his mouth, ash falling onto the snow. My stomach twisted. These weren't professionals. These weren't even local contractors. These were the type of men you paid in cash, no paperwork, no accountability. Marla strutted toward them like she was a queen greeting her knights. "This is the wood," she announced loudly, pointing at my stack as if it were contraband. The men nodded lazily, barely looking at her, more interested in the wood itself than her authority. I stepped forward before they could touch anything. "Don't move a piece," I said, louder than I meant to. The man with the cigarette smirked and tilted his head. HOA orders, he muttered. His breath smelled like stale smoke and cold air. Marla appeared beside him and crossed her arms. He's in violation, she said. This belongs to us. My blood boiled at that word, belongs. She said it like she owned the whole street. The men didn't seem to care about rules. They were waiting for a signal. And when she nodded sharply, one of them reached for a log. I reacted without thinking. I stepped between them and the wood, boots firmly planted in the snow. My heart raced, but my voice was steady when I said, "Touch it, and I call the police." Marla's eyes narrowed, but something flickered there, uncertainty. She wasn't expecting pushback. The cigarette guy chuckled, muttering something under his breath, but he didn't take another step. Neighbors began appearing at the edges of their driveways, drawn by the sounds of arguing, or maybe just curious because drama in winter travels faster than the cold. I saw curtains move, doors crack open. Marla loved an audience, but today that audience was mine too. One neighbor, Mr. Fletcher, walked closer, hands in his pockets. "What's going on?" he asked, squinting at the men by the truck. Before I could answer, Marla jumped in. "Unauthorized woodpile," she said quickly, "on HOA land. We're removing it for safety." She always chose words like safety, hazard, regulation, as if they made her untouchable. But Mr. Fletcher frowned. "Pretty sure that's his land." He pointed toward the old wooden survey stakes still visible through the snow. I felt a spark of hope. Marla spun toward him, her voice sharp. "That is outdated." The HOA redrew the boundary. She said it confidently, but even from 10 feet away I could see sweat forming near her hairline. I slowly reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the folded survey papers I kept for situations just like this. My hands shook from cold and anger as I opened them. "This is the official county survey," I said. The crowd leaned slightly closer. Marla scoffed. "That's years old." "County confirmed it 6 months ago," I replied. Her face tightened. For a moment, the only sound was the distant hum of a snowblower somewhere down the street. Then the cigarette man said, "So, we moving this or not?" His voice cut through the tension like a blade. Marla hesitated, then stepped toward me, her boots crunching loudly. She leaned in, whispering so only I heard, "You think a piece of paper is going to save you?" Her voice was cold, but there was a tremor under it. That's when I realized she'd crossed a line even she wasn't sure she could defend. The crowd was growing, and witnesses were her worst enemy. I spoke loudly so everyone heard. "If you believe this is HOA property, call the county right now. Let them confirm it." The moment the words left my mouth, I saw a panic flash in her eyes. She didn't want the county involved. She didn't want real authority stepping in, because she knew something I didn't. Yet, she turned sharply toward the removal team and said, "Move the wood, now." The men stepped forward again, unconcerned with the tension, but my hand was already on my phone, thumb hovering over the screen. I locked eyes with Marla. "One call," I said quietly, "and this becomes a very different conversation." Something shifted in the air. The neighbors watched silently. The snow fell softly. The men hesitated once more, and that's when I realized someone else was walking up the street. Someone who had turned this whole situation upside down. The figure trudging up the icy sidewalk wore a bright orange safety vest, the kind only real officials ever bothered with in winter. At first, none of us recognized him because the hood of his parka was pulled tight against the wind. But as he drew closer, he lifted it back, revealing the familiar face of Officer Henderson, the county land survey inspector himself. My breath caught, and Marla's face drained of color so fast it was almost impressive. She stepped back instinctively, clipboard clutched to her chest. Henderson wasn't the type to casually stroll into neighborhood drama. If he was here, he'd been called for a reason, just not by me. He gave a polite nod to the small crowd, then stopped between me and Marla. "Got a report of disputed property lines," he said calmly. His voice carried in that steady, official way that made everyone straighten their posture. Marla immediately pointed at my firewood. "He's storing materials on HOA land," she blurted. Her voice trembled. Henderson raised a brow. "On HOA land," he repeated. She nodded too quickly. "Yes, I've already ordered removal." The men by the truck looked unsure again, glancing between us and the inspector like they were waiting for permission to exist. Henderson adjusted his gloves and knelt down in the snow, brushing it aside until he uncovered the survey stake. He studied it, then stood and unfolded a document from his own clipboard, a real one, thick, stamped, and official. I saw Marla's throat tighten. Henderson compared his paper to the stake, then motioned toward where my woodpile sat. "This is clearly on private property," he said. His tone left no room for argument. A few neighbors murmured, some nodding, some quietly enjoying the drama. Marla took a small step backward as if distance might dissolve responsibility, but Henderson wasn't done. He turned fully toward her. "You filed a complaint last month claiming this plot was HOA owned," he said. "We reviewed the deed records. Nothing has changed. Property lines haven't shifted in 15 years. His words fell like hammer strikes. Crowd went silent except for the soft hiss of wind through bare branches. I watched her eyes dart left and right, searching for support. None came. She opened her mouth, closed it, then forced a brittle smile. "There must be some misunderstanding," she said weakly. Henderson stared at her, expression flat. "There is," he said, "and it's yours." The removal guys started backing toward their truck, clearly wanting no part of this anymore. Marla spun toward them. "Stay," she snapped, but even her voice had lost its bite. They ignored her. They got in the truck, slammed the doors, and drove off, tires skidding on the snow. Neighbors whispered quietly, some pulling out their phones, not recording but definitely ready if things escalated. Henderson handed my survey documents back to me with a respectful nod. "You're in the clear," he said. "But I need to speak with her." Marla stiffened as he turned. "Ma'am," he continued, "filing a false claim with the county is a serious offense, especially when it involves property disputes." Her breath hitched. I saw her fingers tighten painfully around the edge of her clipboard. I thought," she stammered. He cut her off gently but firmly. "HOA guidelines don't override county boundaries, and they don't grant authority to confiscate private property." Every word peeled away another layer of her fake confidence. Her power shrank right before our eyes. Henderson took out a notepad. "For the report," he said. She swallowed hard. "Report," she whispered. He nodded. "There will be an investigation. You may be asked to appear before the county board." The neighbors exchanged glances. A few raised their eyebrows. For a moment, Marla looked like a child caught stealing, not the self-appointed dictator of our street. She tried speaking again, but her voice cracked. "I misunderstood the boundary," she muttered multiple times. Henderson added. Then he turned to me. "If she contacts you again regarding this property, call us directly." His calm tone eased the tension in my chest. The cold didn't feel as sharp anymore. He gave the crowd a polite nod, then walked back toward his truck, boots leaving deep impressions in the snow. The moment he left, the silence hung heavy. Marla stood motionless, clipboard lowered, face pale from more than the cold. One neighbor finally said what everyone was thinking. "You went too far this time, Marla." She flinched but didn't respond. Without a word, she turned and hurried down the street, boots sliding on patches of ice, humiliation trailing behind her like a second shadow. And just like that, justice had finally caught up with her.